Welcome back to the Gentleman's Gazette. In today's video, we'll discuss why we believe that no menswear articles in the decades following the 1960s have become truly classic. As we've discussed here on this channel before, the classic menswear we favor here at the Gentleman's Gazette is inspired by fashion from the 1920s into the 1960s. Obviously, there were a lot of well-dressed gentlemen in subsequent decades, but they either fell into the classic category or intentionally dressed outside of it. Fashion style consists of what you wear and how you wear it. And when it comes to individual articles of clothing, no menswear has actually become a true classic post the late 60s. Now we know that's a big claim, so let's investigate. Before we get started, we should get some ground rules for this discussion. And when we say classic, we don't always mean iconic or even necessarily good looking. We're referring to the classic style. Now a 1970s jumpsuit is certainly iconic, but that doesn't make it a classic style. And Sammy Davis Jr., who is a gentleman of classic style, certainly looked good in a jumpsuit. Keep in mind that does not make it classic. And what do we mean by classic? Well, let's take a look at the definition. A timeless article of menswear, just as wearable now as it was in the past. It can be incorporated into a gentleman's individual style, but it is still a part of the overall classic style. And now onto our argument. First, let's consider some major fashion innovations of the late 20th century. Now we'll try to prove that none of them can fulfill our definition of a true classic. Then we'll conclude with why mid-60s and earlier menswear tend to be so classic. Please keep in mind we're not saying that classic style is inherently better than all other styles. And we are not saying that all non-classic clothes are ugly. We're just here to find out if any menswear from the late 60s onward can classify as classic. And so without further ado, let's get started. We'll begin with the most fundamental menswear item, the suit. Now if asked to comment about many big changes in menswear in the 1960s, most people would refer to the different changes that happened to the suit. From the psychedelic peacock revolution to the jarring flash of the disco era, even to the totally tubular trends of the 80s, which our viewers may recognize from watching Miami Vice or playing Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Now suit colors, styles, and fabrics have certainly gone through a big evolution in this latter part of the 20th century. For more on the history of the general suit, check out our video here. But have any of those changes produced a new classic? Now in our opinion, definitely not. First of all, some of these iconic looks from these eras are just too dated to be included in this classic look. Now a gentleman might be able to pull off extremely flared lapels or a fringed leather jacket, but those would be more statement pieces, not something that's a true classic. Now of course, one could argue that broader suit trends from these eras could also qualify them to be a new classic. Now for instance, the use of bold colors or unique fabrics have become more prevalent since the 60s. Interesting colors have always been a part of classic menswear. We have over 30 videos on how to wear and combine color and pattern playlist, which show you a lot of different options and how to wear classic menswear. The key thing to remember is that the amount of color and the type of color you wear should be suitable to the occasion. Jewel-toned dinner jackets can work in certain occasions, but not others. Fortunately, you always have us here at the Gentleman's Gazette to help you navigate those situations. Now as for fabrics, it is true that some of the functionality of fabrics has shifted. For instance, sporting fabrics like tweed, merino, and corduroy were usually exclusively only for outdoor activities like hunting. But now your tweeds will look just as good indoors or at an office party as they would outdoors while you're out duck hunting. We cover more about this in our video here. And be sure to check out our video on camo and classic menswear. When it comes to colors or fabrics, the form and function may change throughout the years, but the classic principles will remain the same. Fundamentally, the same can be said for most evolutions of the overall style of suits. Now for instance, lapel width, trouser length, cuts, and similar detailing. While trends in detailing come and go, the timelessness of a classic suit still depends on certain tenets of information that we cover in our videos on this channel. So even though pinstripes might have been revived in the 90s, they were already a well-established part of menswear. And while a young Raphael might have looked amazing in his white suit, he should have saved that look for a gala or a regatta. Now let's look at new applications for old articles. The second half of the 20th century presents a lot of examples of menswear being revived and repurposed. For instance, did you know that jean fabric was actually around when William Shakespeare was alive? Now, modern jeans were created in the 19th century, but the fabric itself has actually been around since the late 16th century. For most of its history, jeans have been used as utilitarian garments, something that's comfortable and can be worn in dirty conditions. After World War II, jeans became increasingly popular as a youth emblem, and they eventually became staples of everyday wear. Around the 1970s, the jeans and blazer combination caught on. This was seen by movie stars, even college professors, even Virgin Air mogul Richard Branson. This style has become popular with tech magnates and others the world over. And jeans aren't the only modern menswear article with an interesting past. Now, we may associate Chelsea boots with the British invasion of the 60s, but they were actually quite popular when Queen Victoria reigned. And most modern sunglasses have their origin coming from the cockpit of a plane or a race car. Did you know that the first aviators were created in 1935 for the United States Air Corps? Or that the highly modern Purcell 714 was actually a number of years old before they were popularized by Steve McQueen on the set of The Thomas Crown Affair? Gentlemen's wristwatches were first introduced in the 19th century. While plenty of newer models have been released, many are based off of styles that came out in the early and mid 20th century. Watch this video to see more about men's jewelry items that didn't become quite as popular as the wristwatch. Now, in the world of early sporting, chukka boots got their start on the polo field. And the polo shirt underwent many evolutions on the tennis court long before it was associated with keg parties, and while boating shoes and driving moccasins are now worn as casual footwear, and until the second half of the 20th century, they were rarely seen outside of a speedboat or an automobile. Coats and jackets have also undergone a major shift in their use. The iconic Montclair jacket, before it was a must-have winter accessory, was actually used by professional skiers and professional mountaineers. And the Harrington jacket may have received its name in 1964 from a Ryan O'Neal character, but it was first designed in the late 1930s, as we discuss here. Motorcycle jackets were worn in the early 20th century to prevent road rash, but are now commonly seen on men who have never even been on a Harley Davidson. And historic military jackets are often also popular off the battlefield. Bomber jackets and the M65 field jacket have obvious military connections. But did you know that the duffel coat got its start in the armies of 19th century Europe and was even standard issue for the British Navy in the 1890s? Now, many cotton garments like twill chinos were designed for military applications because they were cool and durable. Khaki, as it is often described in North America, was first introduced by the British colonial armies in the 1800s. Returning to the world of sports, we'll see that most modern athletic wear is actually much older than you might think. Some of the first hoodies were created by Champion in the 1930s, and sneakers or trainers have been gracing croquet, basketball, and tennis courts since the second half of the 19th century. Now, while exercise suits like track suits and shell suits have been keeping their wearers cool for decades. Now, before the rise of 80s hip-hop artists, the Sopranos gangsters, or the rise of athleisure. So can these innovations be considered post-60s classics? We would argue that they can't. Now, while it's true that these fabrics and clothes have all been worn in ways that they weren't traditionally intended to be worn, they all existed before the 1960s and were regularly utilized. The range of those conditions have simply expanded. For instance, we've made several videos on the evolving role of denim in classic menswear. Now let's take a look at the ascendancy of casual clothing. So far, we've only been obliquely referencing the most significant trends in menswear in the most recent decades. Since the 1970s, the suit and tie ensemble has been waning outside of the business world. And nowadays, many offices no longer require ties. It feels like traditional dress shirts and ties have been replaced by luxury $200 t-shirts. As we've noted, most of these casual classics have existed as niche garments before they became a part of everyday wear. But could one argue that wearing these old clothes in new ways does constitute in itself sort of a new classic? Well, we say no. As we mentioned before, the moment that an article of clothing is no longer recognizable as timeless, it ceases to be a part of classic style. And this includes altering its function, like wearing an undershirt as though it were a dress shirt. Now, just like we mentioned earlier, for certain garments to still be a part of classic style, they need to be worn in the right circumstances. So gentlemen can pull off sneakers, but only in the right circumstances, as we discussed in this video here. And there's even a time and place to wear a suit jacket without a tie. But unless one adheres to classic style rules, the style itself cannot be considered classic. Now, what makes a classic? And we hope that at this point we've clearly explained to you that no menswear post-1960s is a part of classic style. Now, most classic menswear styles have their origins long before the 1960s. Even if those articles are used in new or in different ways, they still have to adhere to certain classic style rules to be considered a true classic. The same logic also applies to broader trends like cuts, patterns, colors, and textures. Unless they can be integrated into the classic style, they are not true classics. This begs the question, why can't any menswear from the 1970s, for example, fill this criteria? We think it's partly because most menswear after the 1960s departed too greatly from classic style rules. Think the wild prints of the 70s or the baggy cuts of the 80s and 90s. And later from the 90s on was inundated by the conventions of things like fast fashion, where they focus more on quantity over quality. Classic versatility was set aside in favor of flash, trends, and self-centered fashion. But for gentlemen who prefer the classic style, its main point of appeal is the fact that it's timeless, versatile, and always easy to wear. Classic clothing articles and styling have literally stood the test of time. They remain elegant and appealing despite the passing of decades. The style is broad enough for individual expression, and the style also provides guardrails to help gentlemen look their best. And the classic style has been developed by generations of stylish gentlemen that have developed rules and conventions that help men look their best. Now here's a closing thought. Now maybe there haven't been any new, innovative classics since the 1960s because we're still trying to find new and innovative ways to wear what we already have. Today I'm wearing a navy blue cable knit sweater from Ralph Lauren and a white and brown striped dress shirt, along with green slacks, brown dress shoes, and of course my Fort Belvedere socks. Check out the Fort Belvedere shop here for socks like these.